In this short video presentation, I'm going to talk about writing and speaking. The view that writing is derived from and subordinate to speech dates back to at least the time of Aristotle. Coolness identifies in Aristotle a belief about the relationship in which things in the world make their impression upon the soul and can then be spoken of. Once spoken of, the words can then be written. Writing does not exist independently of speech, but puts speech to paper with letters reproducing sounds. Oral language thus remains primary. Such a view cycles back around a number of times throughout history and affected the way that German, French, Italian, English, and other languages were taught around the middle of the last century. If writing is a sign of an idea of a thing, then it's rather insignificant. Socrates is quoted as saying, "Written words are unnecessary, except to remind him who knows the matter about which they are written." In such a view, writing serves only as a reminder, but has little value otherwise. In any case, writing and speaking are quite distinct. Where speech is continuous and ongoing, writing is discrete. Where speech is bound to an utterance in time, writing is timeless, and the things we write can continue to persist for many years after the person who wrote them is gone. Where speech is contextual, writing is autonomous. And where speech is evanescent, writing is permanent. Where speech is audible, writing is visible. Where speech is produced by voice, writing is produced by hand. These differences might seem rather obvious, but it's worth thinking about how writing changes language. How does the permanence of writing change language? What does it allow to be preserved? How does the autonomy of writing change language? What things need to be written into a text when you don't know where it is going to be read or by whom? What happens when the written spelling of a word persists for hundreds of years after the pronunciation changes? I'm thinking specifically about alphabetic spelling. Does alphabetic spelling preserve pronunciation? So think about the questions I've asked. Pause the recording, have a cup of coffee or tea, and think about these. How does the permanence of writing change language? What does it allow to be preserved? How does the autonomy of writing change language? What things need to be written into a text when you don't know where it is going to be read or by whom? What happens when the written spelling of a word persists for hundreds of years after the pronunciation changes? Coolness writes that in literate societies, we pronounce as we spell. We judge our utterances against the yardstick of written sentences. The written form, instead of reflecting speech, becomes the guide for it. The naturally shifting and changing sounds of a language are preserved, particularly in alphabetic or syllabic scripts. The language may continue to shift despite the written evidence of earlier forms of pronunciation, and the child in school may be considered less intelligent when not comprehending that writing no longer does what it claims to do. Alphabetic writing, rather, no longer does what it claims to do, accurately reflect the sounds of the language. We consider speech to be less grammatical when it differs from the written form. We consider speech to be less grammatical when it differs from the written form. In fact, in ESL classrooms, a lot of conversation teaching is actually teaching people to speak as we write rather than to speak as we speak. We teach them to have grammatically correct, complete sentences when neither you or I speak in such a way most of the time.